Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CSRA Heat 21-22 Parent Information Meeting. Connie, can you hear me? You're muted.
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. That's a good sign. All right, then we'll go ahead and get started. So what we're going to go over today, we're going to talk about the basics of club volleyball, the continuing impacts of COVID-19, what you can expect for tryouts, and the expectations and policies of the Heat. As you'll see, the only ones that can talk in this Zoom meeting are myself and the other hosts. There is a Q&A available. If you look on the, you should see it on the slide here somewhere in your Zoom. It'll have the Q&A button. Just type your question in and we will get to it at some point. We have a couple of logical stopping points in the presentation. So the real basics, what is club volleyball and who is the CSRA Heat? So club volleyball and the Heat, it's an opportunity to participate in competitive tournaments and get advanced training. Usually a little bit beyond at some levels, what you might get out of your high school or middle school. That prepares players for the next school season, and at higher levels, it lets them be seen by college coaches. We don't try to make recruiting a big deal, although we do have several players that have been recruited and will be playing in college next year. But almost all college coaches recruit from club volleyball and not high school. And that's just because they can go to a tournament and see 50 or 100 teams of girls at the highest level instead of going to a high school match and seeing 2 teams. So the CSRA Heat is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3. We're members of USA Volleyball, the Palmetto Volleyball Association. So most of the tournaments we participate in are in the South Carolina, some in North Carolina, some in Atlanta area. We do believe in building life skills as well as volleyball skills. We try and work to teach responsibility, communication, leadership, teamwork. We think of the Heat as a family. And it's really one of the coolest things that we see every year is the strong bonds that form between the Heat families. After you spend enough time together on all these tournament weekends, you just seem to make some friends that for some folks last a lifetime. So what's the time commitment for playing with the Heat? Most of our teams will have 2 to 3 practices per week, depending on the team level. And we'll talk about team levels in a bit. Usually a Sunday afternoon and then 1 or 2 weeknights. The power teams will have at least 2 practices during the week, and the club level teams have 1. The tournaments start in early January. I think the second weekend, not the weekend of New Year's this year, but the next one, and go until early April. So for our coaches, one of the things that we really try and focus our coaches in is positive coaching. So positive reinforcement whenever possible. Certainly there are times when there are consequences, but we believe in consequences, but not punishments. We have several experienced coaches. We put 2 coaches per team. It's important to us that we don't have screamers or clipboard throwers. And we're excited that we've added several new coaches this season, including some experienced high school coaches, an assistant coach from Augusta University, some college players, and some others that have moved into the area that have reached out to us. So we're really looking forward to having a great coaching cadre this year again. So COVID-19 is always on everyone's mind these days. From a region impact, I can tell you that the region, which is the PVA and the club directors, have been continuing to work all summer to make sure that we still are able to have a season. Even with that, there's going to be significant uncertainties because we don't know what's happening. Thankfully, right now the pandemic is decreasing pretty dramatically, but we don't know what's going to happen a week, a month, or 3 months from now. The rules may vary from week to week and from facility to facility as we progress through the season. But here's a few of the highlights. We are working on pre-ordered tickets for the events. The region's looking to do that. We'll certainly do it for ours, the ones that we host. We may still have limited attendance for some events based on the tournament sites. Right now, the region isn't planning on limiting it unless the tournament sites do. Some divisions will continue to play on Sundays for single day tournaments. So One tournament, 12, 13s, and 14s may play on Saturday, and 15 to 18 club will play on Sunday, and then another week it might be reversed. Masks are highly recommended for everyone inside of all facilities. And the teams and spectators, they are planning on having everyone leave the court area again immediately after the end of your team's matches. And that may mean that you have to go somewhere far away, like out in the car, and hopefully it's a nice day, or go outside or something to get away from the court if you're not playing or the working team. All players should be bringing their own water bottles. We encourage that anyway, just because of cold and flu season. And they're also eliminating handshakes, high fives, big team huddles, things that you've seen all school season if you've been playing, like there probably won't be any changing sides, all the basics that have permeated through volleyball the last year and a half. So from the CSRA Heat's perspective, we do have under forms and tryouts, forms and documents, you will see that we do have our COVID protocols and procedures there and the COVID-19 refund policy out there. Please take a few minutes and read through it. You are going to be held to it, so it's important that you know it. I'll touch on a couple of the highlights as we go through here. Well, I thought I would. There we go. I got my mouse back. All right. So the Heat is going to follow CDC, USA Volleyball, Palmetto Volleyball, and Georgia Department of Public Health protocols. The situation is going to be dynamic. One of the changes this year is for quarantines, because the CDC guidance depends on so many things. It depends on whether you've been vaccinated as a player or as a parent. It depends on whether or not you've had COVID in the last 3 months, 90 days. And so we're going to be communicating to the families, and we're going to expect that everyone communicates openly and honestly with us. We're going to be requiring mask use upon entering facilities, and when folks aren't playing, we will continue to be disinfecting equipment. There's the COVID assumption of risk and waiver of liability that you probably signed during the tryout registration. And once again, this season, we're going to have tryouts for players and coaches only. So we're not going to have parents gathering out in the halls or sitting on the bleachers, at least unless the COVID situation changes dramatically. We're not requiring vaccinations for players or coaches, but it does impact the length of quarantines for folks. And thankfully, as I said, cases have declined significantly in our area, and we hope the trend continues. But we need to be flexible. As it says, flexibility is going to be required by everyone. And the situation will change during the season. That's the one thing we've learned about COVID-19 is it keeps changing, the rules keep changing, and we just have to be ready to adapt. Honesty and transparency, as I said, about your own health situation, your vaccination status, whether you've had COVID recently, all that is going to be extremely important so we can protect each other as teammates. And regardless of your personal beliefs regarding COVID, you have to agree to adhere to the CSRA Heat rules and the PVA rules in order to be able to participate in tournaments this season. Our priority, as always, is the safety of our members and of our spectators at our tournaments. So then we're going to move on to tryouts. So tryouts this for the middle school are this coming Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday for the 12s. We'll talk about that in just a second. The tryout fee is $35, and you must register online ahead of time, and you have to do the USAV tryout registration as well ahead of time. When we did a quick check today, we found out only about a third. There's about a third of our people that have registered for the Heat tryouts, but have not registered for USAV. We did send out notices to everybody. If you got one of those, it's because your daughter didn't show up as registered in our system. If you're sure you did, please respond to that email and let us know what the situation is so we can try and resolve it before she shows up for tryouts on Saturday or Sunday. The registration, go to csraheat.com, click on the registration link. It walks you through, here's step 1, here's step 2, and here's how you get to everything. We did send out an email. I mentioned about the 12U tryouts. We've had a bunch of folks sign up for tryouts, especially at the 13s. We've had a few more than we expected based on past numbers, which is great. But what we decided to do is just to make sure we gave everybody a fair look instead of combining 12s and 13s. On Saturday, we're moving the first 12U tryout to Sunday from 1 to 3, which is already a time slot that was scheduled for the 12s, and Tuesday from 7 to 9. And all the tryouts are at Augusta Prep, as they almost always are. So as we said, there are 2 registrations you have to do: the Heat registration and the USAV tryout membership. And they must be done in advance and online. We're not taking any paper forms. It worked wonderfully last year. We were able to get in touch with folks, and it was as simple as walking in the door. What's your name? You're on the list. We see you've paid. We see you're with USAV. Come on in. Let's get your t-shirt. Let's get a photo. And you are ready to go. We ask that your players show up 30 minutes before your assigned time for tryouts. That time that we published, if it's 1 to 3, that means the tryout will start at 1 o'clock. You don't want to be waiting in line then. You're much better off to be there early. So bringing to tryouts, as we said, proof of your Heat tryout registration, your USAV membership card on the tryout pages at the Heat. It will walk you through how to get that information. And it's at CSRA Heat /tryout-verification. But if you go to the tryout pages, it'll point you there as well. If you're attending tryouts at multiple clubs, there is a multi-club disclosure form that's also linked from our web pages. You need to fill that out. You don't need to bring a copy this year. It's fine if you do, but you don't need to. The club directors all have access to that. All it does is put everybody on an even playing field, so that everyone knows what's going on. Please bring your own water bottle. The last I knew, the water fountains are still locked out. They do have bottle fillers if you need them, but bring your own water bottle. Bring your shorts, shoes, socks, knee pads. And as I said, we'll supply the tryout t-shirts. You registered for a size when you registered for tryouts, and we should have plenty of them there. And we'll assign you a number then. So when you get there to enter tryouts, come on in wearing your face covering, as we would like you to anytime you're coming into a Heat event. We'll check you in, we'll point you to the t-shirt table, you'll go in, you'll get your photo. And as I mentioned, we're not going to allow parents to observe tryouts again, just because we don't want that whole mass of people. And we really don't want to play masks police out in the hallway with everybody. It's just no fun. So drop your child off. You can see them come in through the door. And if you, we will have a couple of parents that we need to help with registration. If you're interested, stick a note in the chat saying so, send an email to director@csraheat.com, and we will definitely get back with you. So thank you very much about that. So the age definitions this year, they're the same as last year. And it was a change from a couple of years ago. So July and August birthdays are slightly off sync from your school grade. So for 14 and under, for example, if you were born in July of 2007, then you are a 14U. But if you were born in June of 2007, you're a 15U. So this chart is up on our website, so everyone can see it to make it a little bit easier. And when you register online, there's no way, it won't let you register for an age group that you are too old for. Now, we get a lot of requests every year about, can I try out playing up? Can I try out, I want to try out with all the girls that are my age in school, they're in my grade. So we're going to let you make the final decision. So you can try out for whatever age group you want. You can be 12 and try out for 18s. Likelihood of making the team isn't super strong, but you can do it. We really strongly recommend, though, your best opportunity to make a team and play at the highest level is usually at your playing age. And that puts you at the same level as everybody else playing in the region and everybody else playing in the United States. So if you are a special case and you want us to think about it, or you played with us before and you're one of the top players on the top team and you want to play up, reach out to us. But generally, we're going to recommend that you at least start in your age group, and we work from there. So what should you expect at tryouts? Well, we're going to do individual drills and team drills. You're going to be evaluated by multiple coaches. So we'll evaluate you on passing, setting, serving, hitting, blocking. Once you reach a certain age, your teamwork, your communication, your coachability, your court sense. So your gameplay during the day. You can expect to be evaluated by at least 8 to 10 coaches at our tryouts. You'll be seen by a lot of folks. We use an application called Team Genius. So you see a bunch of coaches standing around on their phones or iPads, and we're actually using that to enter all the data that we collect about all the players that are out there. We want everybody to have their best opportunity to shine at tryouts as possible. When you signed up, you also signed up requesting what you thought was your best position and or the second best position, or the positions that you wanted most likely and second most likely to play. If you are in a situation at tryouts and a coach says, hey, do we have anybody here that's willing to try setting? Feel free to raise your hand, whether you put down setter or not. If you're a setter, make sure you raise your hand. But you never get punished for trying something at tryouts. We are going to keep them as socially distanced as much as reasonably possible. And we aren't going to have uniform try on at tryouts this season, just to cut off that mass of girls that seem to always be gathered around the tables and in the changing rooms and things like that. So when we order uniforms, we will be going through the similar process that we did last year. So how do we go about assigning teams? Well, our general philosophy is we want to put as many girls on competitive teams as possible that are right for their skill set. So that allows all the players to grow into the game. Ideally, we like 10 girls per team. It's a good mix of having opportunities to do things as a coach and getting people enough playing time so that they're happy that they get to play, because that's what everybody's there for, right? Usually we have multiple teams per age group, especially at the younger ages, 13s, 14s, 15s, especially 16s. But we do have some restrictions on how we assign coaches to teams, because we have some high school coaches from the area, and GHSA has some strict rules. South Carolina High School Association has some different rules. So sometimes we wind up jostling coaches around. We always move coaches rather than moving players. So we put the players on the highest team they achieve, and then we figure out where we put the coaches to best fit their skill set and the needs of the team. So we look at all the skills, position needs. Clearly, you can't have 10 middle hitters on a team. So we worry about having the right skill mix, the physical ability, the mental ability, their hustle, their teamwork, their effort, their attitude. What everybody's availability is turns out to be important. If you're going to miss 3 tournaments during the season and there's 4 girls that are going to miss the same 3 tournaments, we can't put them all on the same team because they won't be there. We also look at your previous experience, age relative to team. Most of the time we can let people play up. It's rarer that we can have people play down. It's the region puts some pretty good tight restrictions on that, and so does USA Volleyball. And the overall volleyball ability plays into it as well, of course. So how will you be notified about tryout results? So tryout results will be emailed to everyone, along with the instructions about how to go about accepting your position on a team. Everything will be laid out in an email. And this year, just like last year, there will be a link for you to click that says, I'm choosing to play with the CSRA Heat. And you'll follow the instructions, pay your acceptance fee, pay your USAV, the total up for USA Volleyball. So you have a full membership instead of the tryout membership. And we'll sign the parent-player contract and the COVID-19 waiver. So the Palmetto region has established decision days, and that's the first date that they will recognize a player has committed to a club. the CSRA Heat really supports this. It's worked very well in the past. I think it takes a lot of pressure off of parents and players and coaches and directors really too. So for 12s, 13s, and 14s, that day is Monday, November 1st. It says 4 p.m. We'll have our offers out by the 28th of October for middle school. So you'll have several days to make your decision if you're trying out for multiple places. And by November 10th for high school, and those are kind of our end date targets. We usually beat them. Just don't call and email and say on the 26th and say, how come we haven't got team notifications yet? They're coming. We get them out to you in a very timely manner. We expect about 12 to 15 teams this season with the Heat, based on the number of tryouts we see, the number of coaches we have, and the facilities that we have available to us, which is a couple more than we had last year, which is a good thing. So we talked a little bit, I mentioned different levels of play. So we have club teams. Club teams generally play in 6 to 8 tournaments. The 12s and 13s may play in 5. It kind of depends because the season's a little bit different because the 1st of January falls on a Saturday, I believe. So that changes the number of tournaments we have throughout the season. The club teams will play in 6 to 8 tournaments, mostly around South Carolina. There's a club division of these tournaments. So in the Palmetto region, there are club tournaments and power tournaments. Power tournaments are a slightly higher level of play, and the club teams practice twice a week. The power and national teams are the highest level that we offer at the Heat. They play at the power or open division at the tournaments in the Palmetto region and participate in at least one national qualifier event. That'll most likely be the Big South National Qualifier in Atlanta that's in the middle of April this year. And they practice 3 times a week. And we are looking at reinstituting what we used to call our power workouts again this year. We're trying to reinvent them, re-envision them a bit again to minimize COVID impacts, but to get some of the things back that we missed from last year, like the younger girls learning from the older players and having a lot more position practices, which is things you can do when you have 10 middles in the room that you can't do when you have 2. So the differences between the levels are the practice time, the level of play, the amount of travel, and a little bit the length of the season, especially with the national teams. So we usually have questions about local teams. We are not planning on offering, usually we had a local team that played sometimes in the past before COVID that played 3 or 4 tournaments. Right now, we're not planning on offering that this season. We are planning to hold our winter clinics again this year. After taking a year off, expect that information out by early December. If you know folks that would be interested in that, that's a no tryout required. It's going to be focused on middle school and younger. We may accept a few younger high school age folks. And we are, as I said, we're looking to reinvent that a little bit and to have more team-like structures. Once again, as much for COVID impacts as anything else. So that takes us up to our first question break. So Connie, do we have any questions out there we need to answer?
The only question we've had, I've answered just privately because it just pertained to one person.
Okay.
But if people will keep typing in questions, we'll answer them as we can, but we haven't had any to share yet.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Then I will just keep moving along. That was my excuse to get a drink of water though. So the next is the challenges as we move through the season and how do we figure everything out. So let's talk about playing time and positions. So playing time, not everyone on a volleyball team can have equal playing time. Because, well, first off, you can't just divide the time on the court by the number of players and get everybody in. There's positional rules in volleyball, right? So playing time is earned, and it's earned in practice. And the most important thing you get out of club volleyball really is the practice time. And that's where most of the improvement is made. But our philosophy is that every girl will get some playing time in every match, as long as their dues are current, they've been to practice, they're not injured, they're not being disciplined for some reason or other. So we want everybody to get to play. That is how you get better, right? And even though we say that, we also say we have great coaches and we intend to allow them to do what's best for the teams as a whole. And by that, we mean there is an occasional match that's so important to the team and is being played at a level player that requires only the strongest players on the floor. We allow power coaches a little more leeway with playing time issues, especially during tournament play. But in general, we work with the coaches. We feel like if we put you on a team, it's because we feel that you are ready for that level of play. And we want the coaches to be able to find some playing time for you. So the position that you're going to play on in club volleyball may be different than what you play in middle school or high school. It's going to be whatever's needed by the team. And it isn't necessarily what your high school coach expects you to play next year. It can be. Sometimes that works out really well. But when it doesn't, what we found is the girl that plays, we've had plenty of young women that have played libero in club and gone back and played center, or vice versa, or played middle in high school and outside when they come to club, and swap back and forth. So absolutely, all that does is makes them a better, more well-rounded player that understands the game better. It's a good thing for them to get the different exposures. So you have to also go into club volleyball understanding that, especially at the highest level, club teams are formed from the best players in the area. So your role on a club team may be quite different than what it is on a school team, depending on the strength of your school team. So one thing we have to talk about is our grievance process. It's all laid out in the parent-player contract. We think, as I said earlier, that the most important conversations in club volleyball happen between the athletes and the coaches. So most of the time, grievances turn out to be about playing time, almost always. And we think that these conversations are important to player development. I can't tell you how many young women, my daughter included, that club volleyball was a great mechanism for them to learn how to have tough discussions with supervisors, with adults, with people that they may not always be used to having adult level conversations with. The best way for a player to approach a coach, by the way, is to ask what they can do, what they can work on to earn more playing time. It shouldn't be, how come I'm not getting, how come I can't? It's what can I do to earn this? Those discussions are definitely respected by the coaches. If there's some other grievance or if there's something that's unresolved, the parent can ask for a meeting between themselves and the coaching staff to discuss the issue. What we do ask is that you do it away from practice and away from a tournament. So at a time that's agreed upon by everyone. So don't ambush the coach after a tournament. It's a really bad plan. Or in the middle of a tournament. We have parents every year that come over and will grab a coach as soon as a match is over, or I've seen it happen in the middle of matches. That's not acceptable behavior. So we can't have that. If you've had a meeting with a coach as a parent and that's unresolved, you can ask for a meeting with the club director, the head coach, the club director's me, the head coach, Connie Spearman, the parent, the athlete. We'll schedule a time away from the practice or tournament as appropriate. And the decision at that point is final. We ask for not at a tournament because everyone's tensions are running high, right? Everyone's blood's boiling, and especially after that match that just didn't go quite the way we wanted to. Having a little bit of time and distance goes a long way. We also don't want to take practice time away from anyone, right? So we don't want the coach to be over here talking with a parent about a potential issue when they could be coaching the team. They're happy to talk about things later. So once again, to summarize, when is it appropriate to talk to a coach about any grievances, problems, or coaching suggestions? Well, leave out the coaching suggestions. That's the first good hint that we can give you. It's usually not a great idea. please set up a prearranged meeting or phone call or have an email exchange. If it's involving something right away, we ask to invoke a 24-hour rule. So if it's in response to a specific incident, a match or event, we ask the parent and the athletes to wait 24 hours before contacting the coach to schedule a meeting. It gives everybody a time to gain some perspective, to get a good night's sleep. And it takes a lot of the venom or the excitement out of the conversation. And it lets us approach from a solution-oriented point of view instead of from a defensive point of view. And that's really important to work towards good solutions. The region does have a no tolerance policy that's important for us to go over. It's a zero tolerance policy regarding parents arguing with referees or even approaching referees or tournament directors during a tournament. I can tell you that I personally had to remove a parent from one of our tournaments that we hosted last year as a result of this rule. It was painful for everyone involved. And I don't want to go through it again. I've gone through it with happening to our parents. I've gone through it as a tournament director. Let's just set the example, be the example that we want the world to be about that. You never want to approach a referee. It's not going to be a good experience. That's for the coaches to do. Talk to the coach about the ref if you've got a problem with the ref or with the tournament director. Talk to the coach. They're allowed to go talk to them. The parents can be removed from the gym on a first offense, and it's happened. The club can be fined. That's happened. The team can be sanctioned from participating in further tournaments. Usually we try and avoid that, but parents have been told you can't come back for a few. So in short, just don't do it. It's not worth it. Be there, cheer, support your players. But this isn't Major League Baseball where you get to scream and holler at the umpire. So the cost information is available on the website. This tells you where. It's under tryout forms and documents, parent information sheet. It's also under, I think, what our different levels of play are. It's pretty darn close to what it was last year. I think it went up $20 or something small like that. But we always want to make sure that it's available and in front of you. And what's included with that? That includes all tournaments, that includes all coaches, that includes all practice time, that includes uniforms. And so essentially what you're responsible for after this is your own hotel stay, if it's an overnight tournament, your own food, that kind of thing. So the volleyball piece should all be taken care of. We do not believe in nickel and diming you to death with the CSRA Heat. So there's not going to be, oh, by the way, a uniform package that you have to buy after you do this for another couple $100. We do not do that. We do not believe in that. We do offer some fan gear. So there's a site that you can go to and order, Heat shirts or polos or fan shirts or whatever. We encourage it greatly, but we certainly don't require it. It's conflicts. Most coaches have rules about girls notifying them before missing practice that results in reduced playing time. And I will also say that especially as the girls get a little bit older, the coaches want to tell you that that's the player's responsibility, not the parents. You can notify parents, but we want, as we said, we're trying to build this experience for the players, right? Treat them as responsible individuals. And so we like them to be the ones to make sure they notify their coaches. If you have conflicts with any tournaments, there is a tournament schedule out on the website now. We need to know that early. There's a financial liability to the club and to the team, and we don't want anybody to be sanctioned. So it's important that you let us know, especially if you have during tryouts, that's great. If not, as soon as you get your schedule from your coach, please look at your family schedules and let them know if there's anything so they can plan ahead. Generally, we get asked all the time, can I play another sport? Can I be in the play? Can I sing in the opera? Can I take the SAT? Can I go to prom and still play club volleyball? And the answer is yes, but the key is communication, right? Now, for the national Empower teams, we do expect this to be your primary activity outside of school. So please keep that in mind as you're choosing the level of play. We do ask that every team have a team parent that they decide on pretty early in the season. And their responsibility is really to let the coach focus on coaching volleyball and let the parents handle the other organizational needs. So sometimes, a player might need travel to a tournament, or someone's putting together the directions about how to get there. Or if there's food tables allowed, they'll coordinate food at the tournaments, or communicate with the coach about whatever help they want. And we have a team parent meeting of all the team parents sometime in December, usually around the time when we do our referee training for all the players, where they share ideas and best practices and things they've learned over time. So we have some of the more experienced folks help lead that. So the Heat hosts 2 tournaments. One will be in Augusta on February 26th and 27th. It says on the day club. It's a 1-day club tournament. The 12s, 13s, and 14s we plan on holding on Saturday. The 15s, 16s, 17s, and 18s will be on Sunday. The power tournament will be March 5th and 6th up in Rock Hill. These are the ones we host. We always need some help in running the tournament, whether it's gym supervisors, the setup, the takedown, people with trucks to help move things around. Our parents do a great job in years past. I'm sure they'll continue to do so. We'll be approaching folks to help volunteer, sell t-shirts and take tickets and all the good stuff, check for wristbands. And really, that really helps us a lot. So sponsorships. We do offer sponsorships. We've been doing this for several years. That's one of the benefits of being a 501c3. So the players or parents, can sell the sponsorships. For a $100 donation, that's $80 that come off the player's dues. And they range, the levels range from 100 to 500 to the full sponsorship of the player. The information is out on the website from last year. We'll get it updated with all the information from this year. The program won't be changing, but we'll get all the documents out there so they have the right dates on them. As for other fundraising ideas, if you're willing to help out and lead it, we're willing to lend our name to it almost always. Generally speaking, we don't have the capacity to lead other fundraising efforts, but if you're that person, reach out to me. We'll be happy to put you to work with any great fundraising ideas you have. We also don't require anyone to ever sell sponsorships. It's just an option that's available to you to help defer the cost of club volleyball. So there's a couple of things that are really important. And one is having your information available so that we can get in touch with you. We send out a lot of emails through the season and they all come through Sports Engine. So in Sports Engine, there's an area where you can set, you can say, hey, you're allowed to email, the CSRA Heat is allowed to email me or text me. I can tell you that last year we had some parents to uncheck those boxes. I don't know how they ever figured out where they were supposed to be. And I think they come to that realization a little bit later too. How come I'm not getting emails? Well, because you unchecked, so we can't send them to you. It's really important to be available to your coaches, the team parent, and the club to get the information, especially as things can change for tournaments as you head into the last minutes. So that's inside of Sports Engine. Look for settings, look for CSRA Heat Volleyball Club. You can also set up things for the Palmetto region or USA Volleyball if you want to limit what they're allowed to do there too. All right, one of the last things I like to talk about is always the job of the coach and the job of the parent. So this may be the most important slide I put up. The best thing you can do for your relationship with your player is to let the coaches worry about the volleyball. It means much more for the player to ask, what should I be working on at home, than it does for the parent to ask. Support your players, support your athletes, be their biggest cheerleader, not their biggest critic. Let the coaches work on technique, unless you've been given some very specific guidance of stuff to work on at home. I was a parent of a volleyball player long before I was a club director. I can tell you I made some of these mistakes. The most important words that your athlete can hear from you after a match is, "You made me really proud when," and fill in the blank. That's what they want to hear. That's the first message they need to hear at the end of every tournament. We're looking forward to a great, exciting year with the Heat. We're glad that you are interested in participating with us, and really glad that you joined the webinar today. So Connie, with that, do we have any more questions? I've seen a few things roll in that you may have answered along the way.
Yes, we've answered most things along the way. One thing to point out, 'cause someone was asking, this video will be available. We'll have a link on the website. So if you missed something, or if somebody couldn't be here, they could watch it that way as well.
Yeah, that'll take a day or two to get up normally, just because of how long it takes for YouTube to process something, and for me to edit it down so you don't get to see that 10-minute timer at the beginning of the video. But yes, that'll definitely be up and posted on the website and on the Facebook page as well. If there are any other questions, now's a great time to type them in. And if not, thank you for your time and attention, and we look forward to seeing you at tryouts. I did see one just come into the chat saying, are 12U and 13U club teams only? They're not. We expect 12U to almost always be a club team. That's in large part because the region that we're in doesn't really support power teams at that level. At 13, we expect that we'll have at least one power team. Did anything else sneak in while I wasn't paying attention, Connie?
Well, one question, how many teams per age group? And that just depends on how many players register at each age group, and our court space and coaches.
Yeah, so if you have a specific question, I think we're guessing we're going to have at least multiple teams at 13s, 14s, 15s, and 16s. Right now, 12s support, the number of girls we have signed up for tryouts support about a team and a half. So unless that changes significantly, there would be one team at 12s. But we're still a week away from tryouts, or 5 days away from tryouts. So it would not be surprising at all to see those numbers go up. How do you check to confirm you signed up for tryouts? You should have gotten an email from confirming your registration with the Heat, and you should have gotten an email confirming your registration with USA Volleyball. You can also go into your Sports Engine account and click on the individual, the player, and walk through to see, and you should be able to walk through there and get a confirmation in Sports Engine as well. And I believe that there's even a link out on the website for this under tryouts. Yes, under proof of registration. I'm going to share a different window if I can here. So we're going to go to this one. All right. So under CSRAHeat.com, under tryouts, you'll see, as I hover over it, there's a proof of registration. And this will tell you, give you a short video about how to confirm your USAV registration. And it'll talk about how you can go in and find your Heat tryout verification as well. So there was a question that just came up about attending all tryout dates, and I will say, yes, we always strongly recommend that you attend all tryouts for your age group. All right, so thank you everyone for your time and attention, and we look forward to seeing all the players Saturday at tryouts, Saturday or Sunday. Thank you very much, and with that, we'll go ahead and end the webinar.